This video was created by Danny Kessler, Associate Professor and Korea's first PhD in wellness tourism. The modern high performer is addicted to control. We operate under the assumption that achieving intense, laser-like focus requires extreme discipline and grinding willpower. But relying on brute mental force creates a biological paradox. Forcing your brain to focus through sheer effort does not produce cognitive clarity. It actually guarantees extreme physical exhaustion. Trying harder hyperactivates the prefrontal cortex, the conscious, analytical part of the brain. This activation actively blocks the state of flow. Achieving the ultimate flow state requires bypassing this mental resistance entirely. It is a mechanical surrender. Because willpower fails, we must look to a specific neurobiological mechanism to unlock peak performance. That mechanism is transient hypofrontality. To redirect cognitive energy, the prefrontal cortex must literally power down. By moving energy away from the conscious mind, incoming data is processed instantly, removing the friction of overthinking or anxiety. Understanding how to intentionally trigger this neurological shutdown turns high performance into a predictable, clinical engineering project. The first pillar of flow engineering relies purely on external triggers. We manipulate the physical environment to demand absolute presence. You cannot think your way into flow. You must trap the brain in conditions where attention is non-negotiable. Stepping into a high-consequence environment, whether that involves physical, mental, or social risk, forces the amygdala to immediately register a threat. The response to that threat is a chemical payload. The nervous system is instantly flooded with performance-enhancing chemistry. This chart illustrates the dual action of that chemical payload. Norepinephrine sharpens the incoming sensory data, while dopamine acts as a pattern recognition amplifier. This chemistry alters the operator's perception of time, allowing them to see connections that were previously invisible. By manipulating these external triggers, we convert a biological panic response into a controlled focus mechanism. We can also architect rich environments, spaces intentionally defined by extreme novelty and unpredictability. The biological purpose of a rich environment is overload. The sheer volume of incoming data consumes 100% of the brain's processing bandwidth. Because all available bandwidth is consumed by immediate survival data, the brain is forcefully severed from past anxieties or future stresses. This triggers deep embodiment, a state where multiple sensory streams are engaged simultaneously to map the rich environment. That heavy multisensory engagement achieves rapid, real-time sensory motor integration. Counterintuitively, this intense barrage of environmental data does not drain the nervous system. It clears the cognitive slate by forcing the brain to drop every non-essential processing thread. While external triggers manipulate physical space, the second pillar relies on internal triggers. These act as the psychological architecture, confining the mind to the deep now. The first internal rule is setting clear micro-step goals. These goals dictate your action for only the next 10 seconds. By shrinking the timeline, these micro-goals allow the brain's internal filtering mechanisms to strip away irrelevant data, vastly reducing cognitive load. The second internal rule is the necessity of instantaneous feedback that directly couples cause and effect. If feedback is delayed, even slightly, the brain is forced to speculate. Speculation immediately reactivates the prefrontal cortex, kicking the operator out of flow. These strict internal boundaries form an essential firewall. They protect the brain's limited processing energy from being wasted on conscious doubt. These internal goals and feedback loops must align at a critical intersection, the challenge-to-skill ratio. The mathematical requirement is exact. The task must stretch your current capabilities by exactly 4%. Plotting challenge on the y-axis against skill on the x-axis isolates a 4% diagonal channel, defined as flow. If challenge is too low, you slip into boredom. If too high, cortisol pushes you into panic. Operating exactly on this boundary balances the nervous system. Maintaining this exact friction point is the ultimate mechanical trigger. It forces the conscious mind to yield and initiates transient hypofrontality. Applying these triggers daily shifts our perspective from short-term productivity to long-term structural adaptation. wellness shifts from a strategy of burnout recovery to the active construction of neurobiological immunity. By consistently engineering flow states, we engage an ancient evolutionary mechanism originally designed to help humans overcome extreme environmental pressure. The ultimate biological result of this continuous training is accelerated myelination. Myelin physically upgrades the nervous system. It wraps and insulates neural pathways, allowing signals to travel faster and more efficiently. In this clinical light, high-performance methodology functions as a biologically validated driver of structural health and cognitive longevity. Abandon the exhausting, outdated reliance on sheer willpower. Treat your daily performance not as an accidental blessing, but as a trackable, intentional metric. Begin the rigorous clinical mapping of your physical environments and psychological boundaries to ensure repeatable entry into the flow state. True human optimization only occurs when we stop fighting our biology and start forcing it to take the wheel. This video was created by Danny Kessler, Associate Professor and Korea's first PhD in Wellness Tourism.